welcome to Who Dares Rolls. I am your host, Mike B, and this is the board game Mumbo Jumbo for the last week of June, unbelievably. Good gracious, hasn't time flown while we were having fun. So coming up for us, dropped probably either now or just dropped, would be my June comparison video, which is already superfluous because there's two subsequent June games now coming out. The detective-based June House of Secrets from Portal and GF9 have very recently, and I think I covered it in the last video, announced a repolished, streamlined, lower player count version of the original June game. So it's all going on. Anyway, my comparison video comes out. It's between June Imperium and the GF9 reprint of the original 70s June. Lovely. Goes into those two games, tells you a little bit about them, how they play, my thoughts and feelings between the two, and maybe which one you should steer towards depending on what gets your June spice is flowing. Subtle. That was smooth as a baby's bottom. So that's that. With all of that out of the way, and of course now the expo is on the doorstep. If it's going to happen, is it going to happen? End of July is the expo. Lockdown restrictions should be lifted just before that. We shall see. More news on that as and when we know. And speaking of the news, let's do some news. Here is the news. So news for this week. So the big one, maybe it's kind of like a stealth. It's like a sign of a deadly fart across Twitter, mainly, is TSR Games, who are renowned and known as TSR, were the original publishers from Gary Gygax of D&D back in the day, in the 80s. There is two TSR companies. There's one set up by, I believe, one of the Gygax brothers, Liam, I'm going to say. They took it on after Wizards of the Coast dumped it. They didn't get the full trademark thing because it cost money and they're a small RPG producer, so they went with the name, but they didn't protect the copyright on it. Subsequent to that, Ernie Gygax, who is a bit of a nutter by all accounts, has set up his own TSR games and announced a raft of things and all this. In the last week, essentially, they have got off from running about as well as the GB News channel did over here in the UK by going full Nazi. That's all I can say on the matter, really. So that happened. If you're blissfully ignorant of it, fantastic, good for you, well done. I was mostly ignorant of it until I started to see the simmerings of the edges of Twitterverse and Facebook, and I'm like, what the fuck has happened now? What's going on? So yes, essentially yes, just what is wrong with these people? So potentially, it's a good marketing technique, create absolute nerd and rage and woke rage and every other rage, but it seems a short-term goal. So anyway, yes, the TSR games from Irony Guy gets arse hats, Nazi arse hats, with just deranged weird shit going on. I don't know what's going on there. Moving on from that, Disaster Zone. TMG Games, I think, have gone bankrupt. I throw this in here because, again, simmerings of bits have popped up in the last couple of days or last week for me. TMG, I've not owned a lot of TMG games, though they did publish Guilds of London by Tony Boydell, which it was a great multi-use card, area control game. Huge rules overhead, and learning all the iconography is the biggest problem with that game. But it's a cracking game, and there's one I need to play again. They did a bunch of other reprints and other stuff. Some brilliant. They did Scoville. The Pepper thing was their early release, and they kind of got a bit of claim for that. But they kind of had a middling sort of stuff came out, and not all of it great. And quite high value price point. I think they did the Colosseum reprint, which was an bastard for Turbo R. Anyway, TMG Games, they did a bunch of good stuff, bunch of not so great stuff, a lot of Kickstarter success, but they seem to have kind of withered and died over the last year or so. And they haven't officially, as far as I'm aware, announced they're dead, but it's pretty much they're dead. So potentially some of the TMG stuff will possibly go to Bangkok. Stuff might be cheaper if that's your thing. It's kind of pick the carcass clean, as it were. But that's happened. I mean, it's not a surprise in the current last couple of years worth of things. I'm surprised that's probably one of the few companies that's so far gone to the wall. I'm sure. Sadly, it's probably not going to be the last. We shall see. Holy Grail Games have announced Caesar's Empire, which is splashed with art from the wonderful Asterix books. There's Caesar. I adored the Asterix books as a child and read many of them. Love the art of them. Just beautiful, detailed cartoon art from Belgian artists. I'm going to say, I'm not going to murder their names because I can't remember them off the top of my head. Asterix is a great kids comic book thing. I loved it growing up. Great. So this is tied into that thing, but it doesn't appear to have very much of the actual main cast of the Gauls and Asterix and all that in it, just Caesar. And rumour has it, the Holy Grail showed a game, Roads to Rome, I think it was called, a couple of spiels ago, which this looks like this is this game, but now been attached to the Asterix theme. Could be pasted on. Who knows? Love the art and design of all the comic books, and it's got the art on front and centre at the moment. I don't know. We'll see. It's kind of missing a trick if it's not doing the main Asterix stuff. So that's the news at the moment, which not depressing shit, really, isn't it? Not much else I've seen coming or going. No more comings or goings to get excited about. That's the news from us. So that's the news. So what have I played? What have I played? Wow, what have I played? It's a bumper crop of playage over the last couple of days. So on Saturday, I went to Dice Portsmouth, which is the Portsmouth Board Game Cafe. Mainly I went there predominantly was because they were doing a bring and buy sale. And I thought there was an opportunity to shift some games that I've no longer playing very much, which is kind of a lot of games technically at the moment. I did shoot actually a video of some of the top tier cream of the stuff that was going. So that should be out as well any minute now, if it's not already out. So you can have a look at that. And I should probably do a subsequent follow-up video of actually the stuff that didn't shift. And I was surprised, just going off the beaten track here, is actually I kind of priced to sell most stuff and did some good prices on stuff. And I was surprised how few of what I would class as actually a bloody good deal didn't sell. But there we go. Anyway, so Dice Portsmouth. Down there, while I'm doing the bring and buy thing, might as well sit and play a game. So Mr. Meeple himself, Broken Meeple, Luke Hector was there. The guys were going around playing a Stefan Feld game whose name escapes me. It was a P name thing. Looked from Queen Games. I was resoundingly with that. But I did sit down and play Runestones, which is one Luke has been raving about forever. It's a kind of deck building game. It's got a board on it. You're deck building, but you're burning a lot of your cards. Most of it is once you use a card, it gets burned. It's trashed. So it kind of keeps you this fairly low-level, efficient deck because you're kind of having to trash cards. It's kind of working out when to trash them. And they get trashed depending on the value of the cards. The higher the value, it gets trashed whenever you use it for certain things. So you're kind of engine generating these cards kind of trashed out, and you're collecting these runestones, trading them in to get kind of tap things which will give you more buffs. The theme is kind of non-existent. It is this runestones thing, and you're gathering runestones, but really you're just kind of building this engine thing. It was enjoyable. It wasn't terrible. It was something I played. I thought, actually, I enjoyed that. It was a nice kind of thing going on. I like the mechanism of burning for the cards. Felt a little Resocarnery. But to me, Resocarna is probably the better of the two because there's a lot less crap on the board, on the table. And a smaller deck of cards, it's getting you to that efficiency of deck building with that rather than trashing off. So similar sort of feel to it. But Resocarna seemed to do all of that, but with just much smaller sort of scale. So Runestones essentially is a solid, mechanically sound, fun game, just not astounding, just not blowing my socks off. It's not something I needed straight away. But if you're in the market for something like that style of thing, I would suggest take a look, though I would personally still sway you towards maybe something like Resocarna because I like what it's doing. And as I say, it's a smaller sort of table hog. It just does it all very efficiently. Good game. Both good games, but Resocarna. After that, so that was Saturday morning. Saturday evening, we'd moved our Friday game nights to Saturday night because I'd been working and I got to there. So there was ended up being 4 of us gathered, which is a bit of disappointment because if I'd known there was only going to be 4 of us, I would have bought probably some more what I would call cool 4-player games that I would like to have played. However, stuff was bought. Bren bought a load of stuff, so we dug through his stuff. First up out the gate was Red Rising from Stonemaier Games. This is like this deck buildery. It's kind of a deck builder card drafting game, and they've got different powers on the cards. Essentially, you do is you start with hand, I think, of 5 cards. And when the cards are played to a tableau on the table in different areas, they will trigger an effect which may affect other cards on there or give you stuff. And where you play them also will give you stuff. The game is played until essentially some player either hits 2 of the 3 points, trigger points of the end game. One of them is like a victory point track, which is a spaceship you're flying. Another one is a government thing, which is basically cubes you've placed in there, or collecting helium. Helium collects a lot of helium. No idea why. It's another trigger point. Great. It looks, as we'd imagine with a Estonia game, it looks gorgeous. It's lovely quality of cards, great components, big stupid blingy bits of metal. Everything looks kind of cool, though the board was a bit annoying because you're putting cards down and you're shuffling them off and it kind of always ends up scattered everywhere, which is always the problem with doing card stuff. Not a very easy fix to that. So yeah, I liked all of that aesthetically of it. The theme is utterly non-existent. I think unless you've read these Red Rising books, which I believe are young adult books, and I've not read them, I don't know anything. I believe even the rule book doesn't give you any real thing. Though Ben is not big on themes, so we didn't really give us much to go on. But from what I understand, the rule book is fairly sparse in regards to that. So I have no idea what the universe is. I don't really know what I'm doing. There's no flavor text in any of the cards. There's some, as I say, great illustrations, and some of them you can go and go, okay, clearly they're a bad guy, or clearly they're a good guy. But there's nothing there to feed the theme. You're just kind of going, okay. So yeah, that's it. Essentially, the idea of the game is you're playing these cards out to get these resources, trigger the end game, and your tableau of cards in front of you at the end also play a part because there is end game scoring on some of them. So if you've matched set collecting in that, and the points at the top you'll get, but you get penalised if you've got more cards than 7. I'm going to say 7, more than 7 cards in your hand at the end, and you'll lose points for that. So all that said, I think I won it. I think I won or come very close to winning. I personally, I liked what it was doing, but the problem is, I think there's about 136 cards in the deck, and I think of them, nearly all of them are unique cards. So it's a big fat deck of cards. And so you're cycling through this deck fairly regularly, but a lot of them tie up with other cards. So if you've got this card in your hand at the end of the game, you get this, which is great, but if that card comes out, and a lot of them are like, it'll trigger this if this is that. So it all kind of seemed to be, there seemed to be too much variety, so many different cards that actually the possibilities, and we're playing 4-player of this, the possibilities of those specific set of cards coming out will allow you to absolutely nail what you need to do. Seems a stretch. So I was left kind of going, yeah, okay. There's the germs of a good game there. There's the kind of the nugget, the base mulch of a good game there. But I think too much variety of the cards, too much going on, and the theme just is non-existent. Kind of left me going, yeah, right. It was okay. Yeah, I'm in no rush to play it again. If someone said, will you play it? Yes, I'd play it to see. But I'm left kind of going, yeah, I don't know. It's nearly a good game. I think that just the sheer sprawl of cards makes it hard to grasp. And the lack of theme, again, it's essentially you're just playing cards. In which case, if I'm going to play cards in that sort of game, I'd maybe play something like Arctic Scavengers, which I'd really call like deck builder with elements, or June Imperium or something. I'd play any of that stuff because I just enjoy more what that's doing. So anyway, Red Rising for Stonemaier Games. I know it's had a bit of, it's not hit with great fanfare, and I know a lot of people already berated on it. It's okay. It's a solidly okay game, but it seems defective. And they might have a really good run, Stonemaier, because they did Pendulum, I think was the one before, which was not very great. It was a real-time game. So they've not had a great track record of lately. But then, it doesn't matter. Stonemaier, essentially, when they print a game, they're already guaranteed bang a wad of sales for the guys who are the champions or whatever it is. I ramble. Anyway, so the end result, Red Rising, nah. Then we played Calico. I'm going to say it's Calico. It's a game about tile laying and getting cats to lay on your rug that you're stitching. You're essentially supposed to be stitching this sort of embroidering this this blanket to attract pussies to it, or put buttons on it. There was some dissension in the ranks of the theme that Bob was offset by why would anyone be interested in a cat game. I then pointed out there's been a few cat games released recently. I Love Cats just made $1 million, I think, on Kickstarter, the expansions. So clearly cats are a thing. Again, I'm left kind of going, it was it was okay. We're putting tiles down. There's a few rules glitches that we had were fine. That didn't massively thing, but I was left going, it's okay. It's one of those, another one of those. It's okay games. And I think I've reached a point now of playing games that actually I'm looking for something when I play a game that I finish it and I go, that was fucking amazing. I want to play that again instantly. I want to play again instantly feel to my games. If I'm going to play or buy a game, I want to, when I finish, to be, yeah, I enjoyed that. Now can I have another go? And so far, Red Rising I was like, yeah, on the cusp of, I may have played it again if we wanted to. Calico, I was left going, yeah, okay, I see what that's doing. I've played a lot of stuff like this already. There was nothing to, theme kind of didn't do anything with me, and I was left going, okay, well, it was perfectly fine, tile-laying, pussycat attractive game. Just, no, didn't do anything for me again. So I was left a bit after that. Then we had a go of Ominoes, which is fine. I love a bit of Ominoes because it's just a random dice chucky sort of bitch each other game, and it's fun. I enjoy it and play it for a while, and I enjoy Ominoes. Ominoes of the three is the one I would recommend because it's relatively cheap and cheerful, and it's a solid little game. You can play it from 2 to 4 players easily up. You get some good night's entertainment, more entertainment than either of the other 2 previous games, in my opinion. Then on Sunday, we cracked open. I decided after I read the book during the day is that we were going to crack open a King's Dilemma, which is one I picked up after I got my bonus work. I've sat on my shelf for a while. We've played some other stuff, and I thought, you know what? It's a legacy game. In a nutshell, the King's Dilemma is kind of Game of Thrones, the board game. You're playing all families around the small council of a king. The game is every evening's little play of one full game is like a generation of that civilization, that family. It's all set in this thronesian sort of fancy world. You've got religion, you've got wars, you've got it's as I say, it's very Game of Thrones. So if you're a big Thrones fan and you like all that kind of infighting between the characters and all that kind of in the court, the smiling politely but actually assassinating and all that sort of moving and shaking the power behind the throne of the Game of Thrones games, rather than the actual sort of series, rather than the actual main fights and stuff, then yes, there's a lot to enjoy here. And I picked it up mainly because I've heard that. And it was great. We actually played 3 games of it. And I was going to hold off to get Charlie involved, but time is ticking by and I don't know how we're going to do it. Potentially he can come in, you can add people in. So I think maybe I'll work out one night how we can do it and Charlie can at least join us at some point. It was interesting to do. The real base game is really simple. Essentially, you've got these stats of your nation, its wealth, its morale, its economy, its power, the descent of the happiness of the population, and they're all controlling this kind of abstracted board. And essentially the game works is you pull a card which sets you a dilemma. It will be something, are you going to feed the poor or are you going to do this? You will know vaguely of what the effects will be to these tracks. Also, if it's going to produce stickers, so what you do is you get stickers come out, a very thick sticker book, that go at the top of the board, which kind of a permanent kind of legacy-ish permanent effects to those areas of the board that you've affected by your decisions. And that's kind of it. And then you essentially have your own family, and you've got your own sort of set of agendas that you're looking for there over the long game of trying to tick off to give you more abilities and points. And there's a secret agenda as well. Everyone randomly gets at the start of the game. Or it's chosen anyway, sort of drafted in reverse around the start of the game, which again gives you buffs for that particular generation you're playing. It's a very simple game once you know the rules. The rule book kind of goes as a very opaque way of kind of going around the houses. It's really simple because I've pretty much just told you how to play it here. Essentially, you get a dilemma up. everyone has the option of either to vote on it by using the power they've accrued over the games, or you can use your money, your wealth to maybe get people to change decisions on it. You'll have someone who's the leader, essentially the hand of the king. They get a hand fist token they have. And there's another guy who's got basically a gavel. And if you've taken that power, you can essentially break ties. So it then becomes this kind of power play at the table. And essentially voting goes around the table until such a point that people either have passed or tap out without putting any more in. But it keeps going round and around as long as the end game trigger isn't set at that point, isn't triggered. And it's got this negotiation going. There's not very much negotiation and playing it. And obviously people are trying to get through stuff. Some of it you're trying to get things voted through, but actually you don't want to be the person to put your name on it. If you're the hand of the king, you essentially take responsibility when that decision comes out. If stuff gets signed off, it's your family that's taken the hit for that. And generationally, what can happen is stuff that is happening is bad for the kingdom, and it comes back and bites you in the arse in subsequent generations. And again, the same sort of thing happened to us. We'll give you a broad idea. I was kind of the Bolton family. They're a bunch of bastards. In fact, I called them the bastards. And the family bastard went about his shenanigans. Mine was kind of focused on war, like wanted to one of my main achievements was to essentially to take out a civilization, to conquer a kingdom. And I actually managed to pull that off in a couple of generations into the game. In the north of our kingdom, there was a kind of a group of nomad types or whatever. We were getting essentially some steel, red steel, I think it was called. We were using this very hard, very cool steel to make us dudes strong, and essentially ended up in a conflict between us and a bunch kind of like a Dothraki type up there who also quite like the steel, and I'd kind of tried to move and shake to us get into a warlike position with them. Initially that was bounced back by Jamie, who was kind of this religious zealot, and he was pushing his own agenda there, which I couldn't get through. So we ended up looking like we were going to have this peacetime negotiations with these guys, even though I'm like, whoa, we don't want to. But yeah, sat, waited my time, and a generation down the line, my grandchild, I think, of my initial character, finally managed to get ourselves in a sweet position to actually end up in war with these guys. We conquered them, and I achieved my thing. So it's kind of cool. It's got this kind of story playing out in there. You've got other stuff going on in there, and bits of it comes up. And I like that. Every time you trigger certain stuff, there's certain envelopes. You get these little envelopes you open up, which only have about 3 or 4 cards in them. They have a story bit which adds to on one side of the board. You slowly get this building story of the world and the peoples and what's going on. And you have a text on there, maybe some effects on that. And then cards go into this dilemma deck. And there's usually each story card has 2 to 3 dilemma cards that are going to come up and kind of move that story forward. Although I liked in such a way that they're written is in that even if you've kind of closed off that main quest line by doing most of the main points of that storyline, the other cards still written in such a way that they work in that they're vague enough that you know that link to the storyline, but actually they work even if subsequent stuff of that has been played off. It's nicely done. There's too often these games you get where actually you got this wonderful quest chain stuff to do, but you end up coming to quests that you didn't do earlier on, but now they kind of are redundant and make no sense because actually further the stories progress past that. And at the moment I'm really digging that actually it's thematically all keeping the story twisty turning, and it all makes sense even if kind of those quest chains already closed off and bits of it are still, the breadcrumbs of it are filtering through. It still doesn't feel like it's superfluous. And our quest deck has kind of blossomed into this stuff now. Well, there's lots of, where initially it's kind of a straight-laced, okay, we're doing this and this. Now we've got wars going on, we've got political situations going on, banks have been risen and fallen, there's civilizations have risen and fallen, there's conflict between regions because of stuff has happened, there's talk of a sorceress on the edge of the world over here. There's lots of really this meaty fantasy storyline going on, and as a Game of Thrones fan, loved it. Really digging this because it is building this kind of mythology that we're creating, and our own families and our decisions are coming back and haunting our future generations. And I'm really digging that heady mix of story. It is very much a storytelling game. It is a legacy game, and there's no way you could not legacy this. If you're going to buy it and try not to use the legacy elements, fine, but it seems a lot of work. But yeah, I'm really digging what it's doing. It is a shame probably you get one playthrough, but I think one playthrough's enough. You're going to have this grand epic adventure. And I'm loving so far how the family of bastards are doing and what they're doing. I've had some great years, and I've had some terrible. My last generation, the grandkids have fucked it up entirely in the last one. Messed up entirely. But yes, I really like that. There's a huge bunch of families we could have picked and we didn't pick. So it's just interesting to see how this is going to revolve. And it's one we've already kind of like, whoa, everyone kind of really enjoyed it. And there was that's playing that again. So 3 games that we played. Don't think we've got anything wrong rules-wise either. Go us. Well done us. So yes, if you're interested in that, I will say it is a negotiation storytelling game. Definitely the more players, the better for it. You want to get as many as you can. It plays up to 5. So ideally, if you can get 5, then do it, because I think that will just add to the heady mix of this sort of negotiation stuff going on. And I definitely will look forward to throwing Charlie into the mix, I think, down the road, actually, because it could still work. A family could pop up, a few generations down the road. That's not unknown. But yeah, really good. It is an abstracted game. The rules they're very straightforward, and the rulebook is actually written quite well, but in the way it does it, really makes it harder work than it needs to be. And it's kind of a bit overly complex for what it's doing. But once you wrap your head around all of how it's working, then it's fine. There is some gamery moments to it. Especially in the voting stage, there can be some tactics in regards to throwing a vote to get some stuff. But yeah, on the whole, I really enjoyed that. Really loved what we did to that. As I say, we all were well invested in it. We all played that through. It was cracking. Really enjoying how that's going. And it's one I'm going to really enjoy playing the rest of that campaign and see how this world develops and the history is written by this stuff. There's lots of cool stuff in there. Really good. I already comes highly recommended at the moment for me, just in those 3 games we played of it, which is the King's Dilemma. It was quite pricey when it was out of print. It's come back. I picked it up at a reasonable-ish price of about 50 quid. And I think I'm going to get my value out of it. We've already played 3 games, love them. I like the aesthetics of it. It looks kind of cool. So yeah, if you're looking for that Game of Thrones feel, which is what I'm really enjoying, because the Game of Thrones board game kind of is like a TI4 game with a bit of Game of Thrones on it. And it never really grabbed me because it never really had that full feel of that sort of small council, the bigger, broader picture of everyone kind of backstabbing it. Not as well as I would have liked, and it was clunk to play, only really worked at big player counts. So it's one of those that I really have been looking forward to wanting a good Game of Thrones game. And I think potentially this is it, the King's Dilemma. So there we go. Yes, we played that. It was astoundingly good fun of all the games we played. It's cool. So let's talk about something else, I guess. This has run long. I've rambled and ribbled, and we've run long. Just a quick one. I've just been listening, indulging myself in Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds, which was a Father's Day present from son number 1. Bless him. I've not listened to this probably in decades. When this came out, my old man brought it home. We had it on vinyl, and it came in a big gatefold 2 albums, I think there was, double album, big sleeve open, big art book in there, and I remember being obsessed with this and listening to it, and it's just a product of its times. If you don't know what I'm on about with regards to this, then clearly it's a generational thing. 1970s, early 76, I want to say, it came out. It's based on H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds. It is a rock opera disco concept album. It's just all of that. Richard Burton, narrating it as the journalist, and it follows Wells' story fairly close to the original story as such, set in Victorian England with the Martians, and it's got the iconic tripod Martians. The art, that's just the art of that Martian war machine taking out the cruise ship, which I was going to say Thunder Child, taking out the warship, the Dreadnought. Anyway, I digressed. But yes, just an iconic piece of my childhood and probably of my age group. It is a thing of its time. It was before VHS, before TV had still had 3 channels at that point in time. We had probably had a black and white TV. Here was this Technicolor, huge, mega budget version of H.G. Wells's War of the Worlds, and this funky, kind of slightly sinister. I remember being not terrified, but I remember there was some of the images in there, and just some of it, how the soundtrack evoked in me at my youthful age at that point in time. So it was scary. So yeah, it was really nice to sit in the car and listen to that, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's just bizarre, just as bizarre now, if not more so than it was when it came out. But it's still a thing. Amazing. So yeah, Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds. If you know what I'm on about, so be it. I warn you now. If you've never heard of it and don't know anything about it, you may very well listen to it and be like, what the fuck is this? But yeah, it is everything and more so. A funky, psychedelic 1970s rock, opera, disco, inferno, Martian, war machine infused David Essex. Just madness. Crazy weird shit. Very good. So anyway, there we go. There is that. I could go. I won't go on. I've been watching Loki. Loki's kind of interesting. I'm enjoying it. I don't know where it's going, which is nice. It just feels at some points in time it's zigging and zagging all over the place, and some of it feels a little bit like a really high budget Doctor Who episode, and then other times it's just, I don't know, but it's good. I like Tom Hiddleston. He's fantastic. He's just loving that role, surely, clearly. Anyway, yes, that's it. So that's it for this week. I have rambled on a lot. The Purge video will be going out. If not, it's not already out, and then I probably will have to do a subsequent video. Charlie's Grove Games video, I'm still in the middle of editing that. That will be out probably next week now. And then my drop the other day was the June comparison video. More stuff will come. It just takes time. I'm working and stuff. So just be thankful for what you get, okay? I've been Mike B. This has been Who Dares Rolls, and that was the first week of June knocked on my head. We're now just creeping into July. It's warm. My nutsack's a bit simmery, a bit wet, and that was too much information. Catch you next week. Ta-ta!